Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm here to present my report on risk management and dairy volatility and hopefully keep you awake after your lunch. So Brian has given a background of where we've come from, a home on the farm. So why did I pick volatility and risk management as a topic to study on? Well, for a start, I wanted to discover a better way of setting the milk price. I sat in a room this time 2 years ago roughly at a supplier meeting. Our co-op was after dropping the milk price by 2 cents a litre, and farmer after farmer lambasted the top table for dropping the milk price, and why couldn't they support it more? So from that point on, I said there has to be a better way of doing this. I also wanted to figure out a way how we could smooth out the levels of volatility we're now experiencing, to come up with some cost-effective risk management solutions. There's a lot of solutions out there, but some of them cost a lot of money. So really, to have effective solutions, they need to be cost-effective. And in typical Irish fashion, find an Irish solution to what is a global problem. So as part of my Nuffield journey, I went to 13 countries, a lot of flights, a lot of meetings, and for my own topic, I concentrated my study in the US, Canada, Australia, and China. So volatility, well, what is it? It's one of the latest buzzwords with Brexit and sustainability that we all hear about. But for me, this perfectly defines volatility in terms of dairy, and that's frequent, significant, and most importantly, unpredictable fluctuations in commodities value. And in terms of dairy, these are mainly caused by dairy's inelastic supply and demand. And what I mean by that is, on the supply side, dairy is a seasonal business. Milk farmers can't just turn on the milk tap straight away, depending on what the market says. There's usually a 6 to 12 month time lag between supply meeting demand. And on the demand side, dairy tends to be a staple food diet. So when you go shopping, you don't buy 2 pounds of butter or 10 pounds of butter, depending on the price. You buy your 2 pounds of butter regardless of the price. So on the demand side, demand doesn't shift significantly unless there's a serious change in price. Then there's also been a large shift in EU and US policy in terms of agriculture. They've moved away from market supports to more direct support, farmer supports, and safety net measures. We're also experiencing significant weather shocks, which really do have an effect on the supply side. And in Ireland, being an exporting nation, we're highly dependent on oil-dependent developing economies. So as we can see, volatility is increasing. We've gone from the market support years of a slow, bumpy 4 cent up or down, kind of what I call it merry-go-round. We're now on a roller coaster, which is 15 cents to 16 cent variation in milk price. But in saying all that, dairy is profitable and it's been well advertised. So in terms of dairy, it's gone from a 31 cent 10-year average to the volatility we're now experiencing, but it also has increased the milk price to 32 cents a litre. And as you can see from the newspaper clippings, everyone knows this. Dairy is a profitable business, so financial support from taxpayers is going to be very politically hard to justify and, in truth, not required. So what is the issue? Well, if we take a case study of a new entrant named Leo, he's on a leased farm, milking 200 cows, he's no single farm payment, and he's a wife and young family to support. Now, if you look at some of the farm facts, his profit monitor figures might show his cost reduction is 22 cents a litre. But if you add in his drawings, his capital bank repayments, the lack of a single farm payment, his actual break-even milk price is 32 cents per litre. So what does that mean? Well, at 41 cents a litre, Leo was literally throwing away money. He becomes a salesman's dream. He's adding unnecessary costs to his business. He brings his checkbook to the ploughing championships, buys some shiny machinery, and he's looking at ways to avoid a tax bill by either investing in concrete or investing in steel that's probably not that necessary. But then at 21 cents a litre, things aren't so rosy. He now is in a situation where he's got negative cash flow and he's highly reliant on trade credit to survive. He's gone from worrying about a tax bill to worrying about putting food on the table. And that tax bill from last year is now due this year. So what solutions are there for Leo? Well, in my report, I focus on 4 key areas, and that's farm-level solutions, such as having a resilient system, building a rainy day reserve fund, At co-op level, schemes such as fixed milk price schemes, forward contracts, price supports. What's out there in the market in terms of futures and options, price insurance schemes. And then at government level, I focus heavily on the US, in the US where they've now the Margin Protection Dairy Programme, which is their main risk management tool, and also the role of taxation. So when you talk about risk management, this is what people generally think or first comes to their mind, but it's actually quite the opposite. So some of the main key findings from our report are, with volatility is here to stay and affects the entire dairy supply chain. It's not just dairy farmers who are affected by volatility. And there's no silver bullet solution to this problem. In terms of risk, Tom spoke earlier about risk management. It's a common word used nowadays, but farmers really need to understand what the actual risk they're trying to manage and what actually is it. Volatility won't affect profitability, but it will affect their cash flow. So for farmers, cash flow is what they're trying to manage. As farmers, co-ops and Irish government, we supported the removal of milk quotas. So we all have a responsibility to be part of the solution that volatility is now causing. With risk management for farmers, it starts within the farm gate. It will be the most cost-effective risk management solution. When people talk about fixing milk price schemes and hedging, the common words you hear from meetings are, well, it's not a good price, we might do better in the long run. But that's not what risk management is about. When you want to hedge your milk price, you hedge to survive, you don't hedge to profit. And trying to beat the market by hedging is a fool's errand. But in saying that, risk management costs money. In my report, I look at 3 key areas: the futures and options market, forward contracts, and price insurance schemes. And they all typically tend to either directly cost or 1 cent a litre in terms of direct costs or milk price foregone. So they do cost money. And the futures market does work, but for me it has no place in Irish dairy farms. The cost, the time and the finance required to fund a futures margin account is beyond that of most Irish dairy farms. You're typically requiring up to 15 cents per litre in a margin account on top of your own day-to-day running costs of your business just to fund a futures position. So for me, fixed milk price schemes are definitely the most effective tool at reducing risk, not just for dairy farmers, but also for the customers on the other side. Co-op supports, while they are vital and they do play a key role when milk prices do fall, they do impair the true price of milk being paid by co-ops, and it does lead to angst among farmers to what is actually the co-op actually paying for their milk. The Margin Protection Programme in the US, it's their key risk management tool, but I don't believe it is possible in the EU to be adopted here due to the diverse nature of products produced in Europe, but also the diverse range of production. In Ireland and the UK, we're grass-based. The further east you go, it becomes more intensive grain-based. So it's not a solution that we can adopt here. But taxation plays a key role in cash flow management. In Australia and New Zealand, where they have a taxation deposit scheme, it has been very beneficial in terms of managing cash flow for farmers. So my recommendations have been broken down to 3 key areas. For farmers, and that is to develop an efficient, resilient business that will survive the effects of volatility. As I said earlier, it will be the most cost-effective risk management tool, and it will cost the least amount. And where possible, to build a rainy day fund, although due to Ireland's taxation policy, it is quite an inefficient way of doing so. Magic number. This was a term coined by a farmer I met in Wisconsin in the US, who's been using the futures market and forward contracts to manage his milk price for the last 10, 15 years. And this is what he calls his cash break-even cost of production. So this is his starting point for when he decides how much milk he needs to hedge forward or what he needs to do to survive low milk prices. So for me, farmers should know this off the tip of the tongue, similar to what grass they grow, what milk they're producing per cow. They should be able to say, X is my break-even point. And based on that, you will decide your risk management strategy. And then on hedging, as it's shown earlier, hedging costs money. So the aim should be to only fix enough milk to survive the lowest of milk price years. When a farmer tries to figure out how much milk will I hedge, people say, 10, 20%. But what are they basing that on? And by knowing your magic number, you can accurately determine how much milk you need to fix to survive the lowest of milk price years. And most importantly, do not try to beat the market. My recommendations for the co-ops, well, one is the fixed milk price schemes. While they are there, they do need to be developed more and expanded to include index linked on the index linked to inflation and to cost reduction. For farmers, they are hedging and income averaging all rolled into one, and the futures market should really be the hedge of last resort. And in terms of co-op supports, they should be done in a transparent manner, not just included in the price of milk without it being determined how much they actually are. They do reduce the extremes of volatility, and in future they may lead to the development of mutual funds. And then at government and EU level, my main recommendation is the development of an EU volatility loan scheme, which should be supported by EIB money. It should become the EU's primary dairy risk management tool. And take Ireland as an example, a volatility loan fund of 150 million would support farmers to the tune of 2 to 3 cents per litre in terms of low milk price years. And most importantly, it would have no cost to the taxpayer. A taxation deposit scheme is urgently required in Ireland and in Europe to help deal with volatility. Current income averaging scheme is not effective with the levels of volatility we are now experiencing. The development of such a scheme would allow rainy day funds to be developed in a more tax efficient manner. They will require a change to state aid rules, but they have been shown to be very effective in Australia and New Zealand. So, getting back to our man Leo, what are these going to do for him at 21 cents? So, on his own farm, he's increased his constituents. He's hedged 30% of his milk. His co-op have announced a support of 1 cent per litre. The EU Volatility Loan Fund is there and it's available at 3 cents a litre. And he's able to draw down 25,000 that he has in the taxation deposit scheme. So at a base price of 21 cents a litre, adding them all up, it means his effective milk price is now 32 cents a litre, a whole 11 cents a litre ahead of what the actual base price is. But that doesn't mean he's getting free money. At 41 cents a litre, he still has his constituents, but now they're worth more. His hedged milk price is now actually costing him some money. The co-op now want their 1 cent a litre back, so they're going to take that off the price of milk. His volatility loan fund has to be paid back as well, but he's also able to deposit some money in the tax deposit scheme. So instead of getting 41 cents a litre, he's now at 35.5 cents a litre. So if we looked at the effect in volatility, that's taken a total volatility of 20 cents a litre and reduced it right down to 3.5 cents a litre. That's 6 times less volatility he's now experiencing because of it. And that makes Leo quite happy. So with that, I'd like to thank my sponsor, ICOS, Nuffield Ireland, for the opportunity, especially John. He's the patience of an absolute saint. My fellow Nuffield scholars for their help. My girlfriend Ciara helped me put the slideshow together, and especially my father and the late Matty Killian, who helped take care of the farm in my absence. Thank you.